Good evening, Singh sir. How are you?
Good evening, Miss Jan. I'm fine.
Good evening, Singh sir. How are you? We'll just begin in a few
Miss Jan.
minutes.
I'm fine.
It's almost time, but we'll just. Yes, sir.
Testing has been done. Javiji might have
Yes, sir.
tested. Okay, fine.
Yes, he has. The presentation.
Good evening, Singh
sir. How are you? So we have already done the. We'll just begin in a few minutes testing, whichever. It's almost time, but we'll just.
That's true. Right.
Science Communication, Misinformation, and Citizen Responsibility. I think it's a very interesting webinar and very pertinent in today's times. And I cannot wait, just like all of you, to hear more about this. So before we begin the webinar, some housekeeping items. Just want to let you all know that the webinar is being recorded and is streamed live on our YouTube channel. That's where all of you are watching it from. And for those of you who maybe may join us late or will view it later, we will also share the links with your teachers. Now, just to sort of go and give you an introduction about the partners. So as you already know, USO is organizing this webinar series for schools nationally. We are a registered society. We were established in 1951. And we are working very strongly for schools nationally to advance the social, cultural, and moral standards to global levels. We conduct several extracurricular tests, seminars, conferences, competitions, and campaigns, and all of those on a national platform. And for those of you who may not know, in addition to all schools nationally, we also work very closely with special schools. These are schools that cater to the needs of specially abled children. Now, we are partnering for this webinar series with CSIR-NIScPR. Not only are we neighbors in terms of our buildings are next to each other, but we also have a very good working relationship with CSIR-NIScPR. So if I can request Mr. CB Singh to please, I would love to say take the stage, but take the E stage and sort of guide us through what CSIR-NIScPR and Jigyasa are all about. Sir?
Thank you, Ms. Chen. Let me first welcome Shri Hasan Jawaid ji, who is the speaker for this particular webinar series. And also a warm welcome to all the teachers and the students who has joined us through YouTube link. Let me again reiterate that the NIScPR is National Institute of Science, Communication and Policy Research, a new entity or a lab which has come up by the merger of the two eminent CSIR labs, NIScPR and NIStats. And both of these labs, they have their edge in the field of popular science magazines, research journals, and as well the policy studies or the different policy formulations, respectively by the NIScPR and NIStats. So NIScPR is formulated on 1st of April 2021, and after that the Jigyasa, again I would like to rebrush, or would say that bring into the minds of the students that the Jigyasa is basically a program, a collaborative program between the CSIR and the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan for inculcating the scientific temper among the students, and how more attraction or an attractive stream can be projected to the students who feel that science is not so interesting or is a little boring stream. There are many models through which we are inculcating this kind of scientific temper among the students. We are not limited to the Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan Institute schools, but we had further progressed onto the Navodaya Vidyalaya and the state government schools also. So this Jigyasa has been program has been carried out by all the CSIR labs in their respective areas. So NIScPR is also taking forward the Jigyasa program, very very prominent and very liked by the students of the science stream. Every lab does this jigyasa, have their different models to project to the students, so that students could able to understand, yes, the science stream is also so lucrative, and there are vast avenues, opportunities if they go in for the science. So there are the different methods by which we interact with the students, where we organize the webinar series, just like the one that we are organizing. And then we have a teacher scientist connect programs, then the student scientist connect programs, then visit of the students to the CSIR labs, and then the CSIR scientists visiting the school. So these are the different modes by which students can be enriched with the information that the science is also something which is very important, and they would love to understand that how the things are happening here. So in that context, we had carried out the 10 webinar series in conjunction with the USO, and wherein we had pitched in the different scientists from the different domains, whether be it the environment, the medical, the genomics, the food technology. So different specific domain scientists have contributed, and they had come up with their research work and disseminated it to the students who had joined us through this particular webinar series. So this time I had uh, put forward a request to Shri Javed ji, who is very good in the popular science arena. And we thought it that coming from the core uh, technologies which the students had undergone, why not to have something common for even the non-science people? So this particular topic, which in itself says science communication, misinformation, and the citizen responsibility. So basically, we say that the myths are been spoken up, and the solutions and what is the reality, it is going to be uh, delivered in this particular lecture. So I'm also thankful to Javed ji, who just putting forward a request, he agreed immediately and has given his time to address to the children. So this is from my side, and those students who joined us through YouTube channel, I also wish you all the best for your coming exams, or those students who are undergoing the exams. All the best for you. Over to Ms. Jan.
Thank you very much, sir. No doubt the children are having their exams, but I'm sure this is one topic which is interesting for them to note. After all, we are living in a world of information overload. So without further ado, this is our webinar number 11, which is Science, Communication, Misinformation, and Citizen Responsibility. As far as today's webinar is concerned, we will have Javed sir talk to us. And if I can just request students and teachers to ask your questions at the end of the presentation, please. You can type your questions in the chat box on YouTube. So I really have the pleasure of introducing today's speaker, that is Shri Hasan Jawaid Khan sir. In addition to being at CSIR-NIScPR, we have also collaborated on a few competitions. So it is a very, very warm welcome, sir, for our webinar series on behalf of all of us at USO. So I'd like to just, for the benefit of everybody, Javed sir has been in this field of science communication for more than 30 years. Presently, he is the chief scientist at CSIR-NIScPR, the National Institute of Science Communication and Policy Research. He is also head of the Popular Science Division, and the Popular Science Division brings out 3 popular science magazines: Vigyan Pragati, which is in Hindi, Science Ki Duniya, which is in Urdu, and the Science Reporter, which is in English. In addition to these magazines, he is also the head of the 2 newsletters, apart from these popular science books and reports. He is editor of the Science Reporter, which is the monthly popular science magazine, and also the monthly newsletter, which is called CSIR News. He has published over 1,000 articles. Wow, really, sir? News reports, editorials, interviews, book reviews, etc., in English and in Hindi in various magazines and newspapers. He has written 4 books, co-authored 10 books, and edited 15 books on various scientific topics, and has contributed chapters in 2 books. In addition to that, he has also delivered more than 200 radio talks on specific scientific topics in English, Hindi, and Urdu, and has also written scripts for radio serials, delivering more than 200 lectures on science communication, popular science writing, public engagement of science, and more. I'm sure this is an abridged version, sir. There's probably a lot more that I missed, but very, very warm welcome. And I cannot thank you enough for taking your time and guiding us through this entire the sea of information and so on. So welcome, sir.
Start. Can I start?
Yes, sir. Please.
Yeah, please.
I'll hand it over to you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Mrs. Neena Jain and Mr. C.B. Singh, for inviting me for this webinar. It's always a pleasure to talk to students, and we have been interacting with students for a very long time through the magazine Science Reporter, and through a number of initiatives that Mr. C.B. Singh just mentioned through our Jigyasa programs. Now, let me make it very clear right at the beginning. This is not going to be an academic discourse. I'm sure you have been treated to a lot of academic presentations in the past. Today's presentation is not academic at all. It's not technical at all. It is something that you have been looking at, listening to, watching, and have been wondering about also. So this is something that happens every day around you. Maybe you have not noticed. Maybe you need a little more focus to notice it. And my aim would be to try and navigate you through the information explosion era which we are handling these days, and why, since you are all young students and would be soon stepping into active professional life and becoming responsible citizens of the country, it is very important that you know how to assess the value of information coming from any channel, whether through media channels or through your friends, your relatives, any channel, and how you should be cognizant of the fact that you need to evaluate an information on certain merits, not accept any information that is passed on to you, and only pass on information to your friends that you think is authentic, is correct, is not loaded with certain vested interests. So so as I said, this is something that you have been seeing. I'll give some examples, and you will see these. You have already seen these examples. You've already read about these examples. Nothing new about it. So just a reiteration of the fact that information evaluation is very necessary. It's going to be more necessary as you step into your adult life. So let me try and share my presentation first. I hope you can see the presentation.
Yes, sir.
And it's moving also. Is moving? Huh?
Yes, sir, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Now
okay.
You're on number 2.
Right.
Slide 2.
So let me begin with a very brief introduction to the organization to which I belong, because that's where I get my salary from. Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. It is a network of 37 laboratories. It is dubbed as one of the largest network of laboratories anywhere in the world. And it is ranked 9th public research institution in the world. Deals with various facets of science and technology, right from aerospace, oceanography, to medicinal plants, mechanical engineering, mining, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure you would have come across these products. This is just a very small, minuscule snapshot that I've brought for you here. The portfolio of technologies developed by CSIR is huge, and it covers a number of sectors. It impinges on various sectors of life, various from industries to farmers to agriculturists, and so on and so forth. If you look at the bottom picture, you will see there's a photograph of a indelible ink which is used when you go out and vote, or when you will go out and vote eventually. So an ink is applied on your finger to ensure that you do not go back again. This ink was developed by CSIR. The tractors which heralded the Green Revolution in India were first developed by CSIR. Amul milk food, which most children savor in their early infanthood, this was a product of CSIR, and a number of other products. I'm sure you can look up this portfolio in your free time. And then the organization CSIR-NIScPR, National Institute of Science, Communication and Policy Research. Mr. C.V. Singh has already told you a lot about the institute. I'll not go into much detail. So basically, we have two verticals. We are dealing with science communication and policy research, and we have been in the business of science communication for more than 7 decades. And NIScPR is said to be the largest institute in the country engaged in science communication. And we bring out a number of research journals, 16 peer-reviewed research journals to be precise. Some of you who may not know, research journals are publications where scientists send their papers, and these are published after proper peer review. Then we have 3 popular science magazines. This is Nina Jain already referred to these popular science magazines. Popular science magazines means magazines which are not dealing with hardcore science, but which try to communicate the essence of science, communicate concepts, complex concepts of science in a language that general public can understand. We also bring out a number of popular science books, very nicely brought out, very low-cost books written by experts in a very engaging language. And these books have been very popular with schools and colleges throughout India. So now let me begin with what I'm here for, to talk to you about science communication. So let me tell you, just like scientists work in different areas of science, like microbiology and biotechnology and physics and so on, our area, staff working in CSIR-NIScPR, we are working in an area called science communication, which involves communication of scientific ideas, communication of scientific developments to the general public. And this has been the spirit of India ever since India got its independence. After independence, the country laid a lot of stress on developing S&T, on developing S&T education, transforming industry and agriculture and society. And the country also laid a lot of stress on developing scientific temper. As you can see, the 42nd Amendment to the Indian Constitution through Article 51AH added a fundamental duty, which says it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to develop scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform. So, technically, this includes everybody, including students, and it gives them a responsibility to themselves think rationally, develop a scientific temper, develop a way of dealing with things in a scientific manner, and also try to develop scientific temper around you, among your friends, among your parents, your relatives, and wherever you work. And so this emphasis on science communication and emphasis on scientific development or scientific temper is reflected in the 5 science and technology policy statements that have come out after independence, 83, 2003, 2013, and the most latest one in 2020. All the science and technology policy statements have laid very great stress on effective science communication so as to generate scientific awareness among the country's citizens, and building up a scientific temper and helping people to develop a scientific attitude in whatever you do in life. And why do you need science communication? The role of science communication is very well defined. Science communication is required to inculcate scientific attitude, as I already mentioned. And India is one of the world's most vibrant and largest democracies. But a democracy works well only when its citizens are empowered with information. If they can take decisions based on rational judgments, only then a democracy becomes powerful. So science communication, the role of science communication is also to empower people with sufficient information. As you can see, there have been a lot of controversies lately on BT cotton, and there are often controversies on nuclear power stations. So unless we impart transparent information to people, they will not be able to take a proper judgment. They will not be able to take sides favoring scientific projects. And as I said, the young people, India is a growing economy. It's a very fast growing economy. We need a number of scientists, and required at every stage of as we grow, we need more scientists. So, and this will not happen unless young people like you take up science and follow scientific pursuits. So one of the roles of science communication is also to kindle an awareness in young people and try to motivate young people, young students like you, to take up science. Inform people about future prospects of S&T. Sometimes certain technologies come up. For instance, there was a time when hardly anybody knew about stem cells. But today you have stem cell banks in almost every part of the country where stem cells are stored in those banks, and later in life, whenever required, those stem cells can be used to cure certain diseases. So this is the outcome of science communication. And of course, science communication also works like a two-way navigation tool, where it brings to the policymakers feedback from the general public, and at the same time informing the authorities and lawmakers in how to devise scientific projects that will not cause harm to the environment, will not cause harm to the people, and so on. So communication is important. You all know communication. Without communication, there can be no human progress. Animals also communicate in various ways. We know dolphins communicate. We know other animals communicate through various gestures and other things. But humans have progressed so far because they could develop communication to a level that no other animal has developed. We developed different modes of communication through gestures, sound, language, pictures, text, and so on. But initially, since humans stayed in caves and slowly moved out of the caves, and they mostly operated in their own areas, the initial pace of communication was very slow. And it is said that if communication had not developed to the extent that it is today, probably humans would never have moved out of the caves, which is true to a large extent. So the first thrust to knowledge creation and communication of information happened when the printing press was invented. That's when knowledge started to be transferred overseas. People could read about what other scientists in other parts of the world were talking about through magazines, journals, and so on. But after the internet came on the scene, to be precise, 1991, when the World Wide Web opened to the public, after that, there has been an information explosion. Today we have, as per certain statistics, we have almost 1.9 billion websites, 600 million blogs, and lakhs of newspapers and periodicals. India alone has almost 1.44 lakh newspapers and periodicals, and almost 900 TV channels. So you can imagine the amount of information that is available today. There was a time when we lamented the lack of information. Today we are grappling with an era of information overload. And this has been further exemplified by social media channels, which have ensured that you get all the information in your palm top through your mobile phone. And almost 77% internet users are on social media today. So from a lack of humans moved from a position of a lack of information to a situation where there was an information explosion, and then eventually information overload. Information overload means there is so much information we cannot navigate through all the information. No single person can do that. But today we have moved on to the era of information pollution. A lot of information is misleading, it's fake. According to some estimates, almost 62%. Some estimates peg it at almost 75% of the information on the net is fake or inaccurate or misleading, not updated, and so on. There are certain irregularities that have crept into the traditional media channels because of the war of TRPs and the race to get ahead and the race to garner commercial advertisements so that they stay afloat economically. And so often media resorts to sensational writing, sensational stories, and they do not report complete aspects of scientific studies. They often misinterpret findings and highlight very unusual claims which have no scientific basis. And millions of people shape their ideas about scientific concepts through these media channels. And there was a time when anything printed in a newspaper, anything printed in a magazine was considered as the gospel truth. So when these ideas are today when these ideas enter into the social media channels, they're further amplified. And so you can imagine a wrong idea and inaccurate information, the potential that it has to create havoc among the population. The irony of flow of information is that fake news, fake information travels much faster. And this is has been this is a finding in a journal, in a very reputed journal called Science, which in 2018 published this information, saying that fake news spreads faster and deeper and more broadly than the true information. And this happens because individuals have their own preconceptions, they have their own belief systems. They do not question the credibility of information unless it violates their own belief systems. And this is also this has been dubbed as echo chambers, where you want to listen to, where you just want to listen to information that you think to be true. You have certain belief systems, and you want to listen to information that is in line with that belief system. So, and this is how, and this is why fake news or inaccurate news travels much faster. What is the mandate of the media? The mandate of the media is quite clear: to report, to inform, educate, teach, often analyze events so that the public can get to know what is happening, why it is happening. As I said, mandate of the media is also to motivate people, to encourage them, and of course to entertain. And more or less, every media channel earlier, whether you take a newspaper, magazine, or a journal, had a system, had a very well-defined mechanism where the author or the reporter would be in the field. He would file a report. The report would go to the editor. The editor would decide whether to take up that report or not, whether it was factually correct or not. And then the editor would pass it on to the copy editor to further edit. It would go to the printer and then would go back to the reader. The reader would further send his or her feedback. And so that's how the loop gets completed. But today, with the advent of social media, you are the author, you are the reporter, you will write whatever you want. You can create your own website, you can have your own blog. You write, there is no editor, nobody to edit. It goes straight away. You can straight away publish it on any media channel. And so there's no check. Whatever you write, whatever you publish, or whatever others publish is accessible to readers throughout the globe. So that's how the mechanism of news flow has become slightly corrupted. Of course, some people call it democratization of information, but this has led to the feeling that people, the general public, need to get more responsible so as to navigate through this information that has not been vetted by editors or which has not been properly navigated by experts. So the fault lines of social media, especially I'm talking about not the traditional media, but social media, where we have no editors or no gatekeepers. You are your own writer, editor, and publisher. And so anything that is of doubtful authenticity cannot be stopped. You can publish whatever information you want. You can have your own agenda if you want. And industries and scientists and other people have been known to have certain agendas and known to have willingly passed on false information just because they have their own agenda. And one of the fault lines of social media is that it has maximal reach. Newspapers, the radio or television channels may not have that reach, but social media channels have the maximal reach and they have high influence. That is why. Now, as I said, I'll give you some examples. These are very few examples which I have picked up from some places of channels which are providing information which are being visited by millions of people, and some channels which are providing wrong information, but still millions of people are visiting those websites. And you can imagine the amount of misinformation these billions of visitors are soaking up. For example, Mercola.com, which has almost 18.9 million monthly visits, it says vitamin D can cure cancer. It advises against immunization. Similarly, naturalnews.com, which has 7 million monthly visits, it says you should eat raw food rather than cooked food. Again, Infowars.com, it labels global warming as a hoax. Tape.com, which says with 3 million monthly visits, it says water, when exposed to the words Hitler and Satan, changes its physical properties. This channel has been described as among the worst assault on science on the internet. DrOz.com is a website. It's also a TV channel which has been feeding a lot of inauthentic, false information through its channels. And in a US Senate committee testimony, the person managing this particular channel was exposed, and as over his false claims of weight loss cures and miracle properties of certain edible foods. Of course, during the testimony, he acknowledged that I don't produce any miracle supplements, but I have a huge fan following which needs this information. And so he keeps on feeding this information to these people. Now, as I said, I have picked up information, picked up examples from whatever has been happening around us, and I'm sure you would have come across such examples earlier. One example is of end of the earth. There were 2 times in recent history when the earth was about to come to an end. First, when some Mayan calendar had predicted that the world would come to an end in December on a certain date in 2012. And later, when the Large Hadron Collider was just about to start, there were fears were stoked that it would create a huge black hole into which the entire Earth would be sucked in, and then everyone would die. So these make for very sensational copy. These make for very sensational TV programs, and a number of TV programs were made on this. Newspaper articles were published on this topic, sensationalizing the event. Of course, there were a few sane voices, but largely sensationalization was the main aim, so that more visitors could be brought into to those particular channels. So as a sensational activity which brought in a huge commercial revenue, maybe it was fine for them. But for these 2 girls, one in England and the other in India, they committed suicide because they could not bear the notion that the world was going to come to an end. They were not they were not emotionally so strong to take this into account, that this could just be false news, or this was just a lot of hype. And so this is what happens when miscommunication or fake news makes its way into public arena. And there are many people who get misled by such information. This is a photograph of a lady found on Mars. You can see this is the Mars surface. And this lady, you can find she's sitting very comfortably there. Of course, if you go to this photograph, you will find that the picture of the supposed lady is of a 2-inch high rock piece, which is shaped like a woman, which has been blown up hundreds of times and was published in newspapers, shown on TV channels to create the impression that a lady has been found on Mars. Children and students, of course, often feel that certain channels, certain TV channels, certain publications are very reputed channels, and Discover Channel, National Geographic, and History channels. These are some channels that come to mind in that league. And we feel that such channels will never telecast any information that would be false or inaccurate. But this is not so. As I've given some examples, these channels have prepared and telecast programs on aliens and spaceships and mermaids, and often they bring in experts also, and some of these experts have turned out to be TV actors. Sometimes actual experts' opinions have been misquoted, and that is how, because every TV channel or every publication needs to stay afloat economically. They need to make money. They need to bring in advertising revenue. So they will resort to such tactics now and then, so that people keep watching their channels. But it's the responsibility of the viewers, the people who go to these channels to really investigate whether the information being shown to them is true or false. We often come across certain miracles. These miracles often make use of the belief in religion. And often when such belief systems, information targeting such belief systems is floated, people readily accept that information. And I have given 3 examples. One is an example of an incident when Ganesh idols suddenly started drinking milk throughout India. And perhaps students like you were not even born then. So suddenly, one fine day, one fine morning, it was reported that Ganesh idols had started drinking milk, and lakhs of liters of milk was wasted in this way. And it was later it was explained to be a scientific phenomenon because of surface tension. But as I said, millions of liters of milk was wasted in this effort. There's a place in near Mumbai called Haji Ali Dargah, revered by Muslims, and as you can imagine, it's a place almost in the middle of the sea. Sea water is always so salty, and this is a place where a lot of sewage and a lot of waste from industries around this place is pours into this water. Now, one fine day, suddenly there was a hue and cry that waters around the Haji Ali Dargah had turned sweet. And perhaps people thought, and as they started reporting to their friends, that this was a miracle from up above, that the salty water had turned sweet. And so hundreds of people jumped into the water, started drinking that water, and you can imagine the kind of loss that they would have faced to their health. And what had happened was that a river called Methi River also flows into this place. And when some of you who may have been studying geography, you will know about ocean currents, how ocean currents keep churning the waters. And sometimes the river water is not salty, not that salty. So when sometimes due to churning of the sea water, the river water comes to the surface, it will taste a little less sour. It will not taste sweet. It will taste a little less salty. So that's what had happened at that time. And by word of mouth, this information was spread far and wide. People came and started drinking that water. Almost the similar thing happened again in Mumbai when on a church wall from the idol of Christ, the feet of the idol of Christ, water started oozing, and there was a huge furore. People queued up to drink that water, thinking that it was divine water, and it is said that almost more than a kilometer long queue was formed just to drink that water. Eventually, somebody found out that there was a toilet on the wall of which the idol was hanging, and there was a leak in that toilet, which was oozing out from the feet of the idol. So that is what people were drinking. So unless you think about a particular phenomenon, unless you question it, unless you analyze it, reason it, you will be blown in. You will simply follow what others are saying. Again, this is something that you must have heard about. 2,000 rupee note coming with a GPS chip, so that even if you bury it 120 meters below the ground level, it can still be found out. Of course, this was news that was widely shared in TV channels. Of course, it turned out to be false. This is a message that we often receive through WhatsApp, an earthquake alert. And it says, it takes the name of NASA and says that a big earthquake will hit Delhi soon, and the Richter scale would be 9.2 and so on. And so you need to move out of Delhi. If you closely examine this message, you must realize that NASA has nothing to do with earthquakes. NASA is the National Aeronautics and Space Agency, which looks at space. It does not have anything to do with earthquakes. So what is it doing here? Predicting earthquakes. Richter scale, if you look at the spelling of Richter, it's wrong. Spelling of Richter is wrong. And if you go to the website address mentioned at the end, nasaalert.com, you will find there is no such website. So once you receive an information, it is necessary that you reason, that you try to find out the truth rather than simply passing it over. And every 1 year, every 2 years, we keep receiving such earthquake alert messages with people simply passing it on without bothering to check. This video, some people, some students must have seen, of 3 or 4 mobile phones and kept around corn, which then pops out. And then and this video was shared by many people saying that this is what radiation coming from your cell phone does to your brain. Eventually, it turned out that this video had been made for advertising purposes. It is not a scientific video, and it is not that 3 or 4 mobiles can pop the corn. Cannot happen. But this was just a prank video, and many people shared this as a scientific information. And then, of course, you get a lot of fake health advices from many people, miracle cures relating to cancer, anything, generally anything that has miracle in its phraseology needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. So miracle cures or first time in the world, these are red flags which you should be concerned about. This one incident in 1998, long back before you were born, there's an article appeared in a journal called Lancet, which said that MMR vaccine, which is MMR vaccine, all children take this MMR vaccine during their childhood, measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine. The article suggested that the MMR vaccine could cause autism. Autism is a disorder, and but later it turned out that the author of this paper, Andrew Wakefield, he was himself filing a patent for an alternate measles vaccine, and that is why he brought out this paper to sort of do away with the MMR vaccine that was being given at that time. Of course, his study was exposed as fraud. His medical license was revoked. But in the meantime, what happened? This news was picked up by news channels, by newspapers, and it was splashed all over. And millions of parents refused to give their children MMR vaccines. Measles, which had by then died away, resurfaced in England. And in 2008, it was declared endemic in England and Wales. As per WHO, in 2011, measles killed 158,000 people. So this is the kind of information that creates doubts in the minds of people. And this is something that happened recently with the COVID vaccination program also, where people fed all sorts of information about the vaccine causing a lot of harm. And many people were hesitant to take the vaccine. The largest amount of misinformation or fake information we encountered during the past two or 2.5 years when the world faced the COVID pandemic. A lot of people tried to make money out of it. as you can see on the left, get out virus is an amulet, is a sort of amulet which was sold freely, sold in the state of Uttar Pradesh at 80 rupees a piece, saying that if you wear this, the coronavirus will not be able to attack you. Bhabiji Papad, it was touted as a cure for coronavirus. It was even announced by a union minister. Unfortunately, the union minister himself fell a victim to COVID. Alcohol-based sanitizers, that is what we used during the COVID period to sanitize our hands. Now, if some people might get the idea that if alcohol-based sanitizer can kill the viruses, maybe drinking absolute alcohol will kill all the viruses that we have inside. And that is what some people in Iran did. And more than 300 people died after drinking industrial alcohol with the notion that it would cure coronavirus. And this was all based on social media forwards. Prime Minister Modi announced during a certain time when people were very perturbed, very disturbed, morale was very low, and the health workers were fighting hard to control the COVID virus. He announced that as a solidarity towards these health workers, we should do something. He said a particular date, a particular time, we should either clap or we should bang utensils, or we should simply switch on the torch of our mobile phones. And but what many of us did, many of us tried to justify this act through scientific mumbo jumbo. Many of us, some people said that this particular time and date was chosen because at that particular time the alignment of planets was a certain way, so that the coronavirus, if we banged the utensils at that time, the coronavirus would die. Some people gave the theory that if you bang the utensils, the vibrations will kill the coronavirus. And lakhs of people came out on the street in processions, something that had to be avoided. So this is how warped information, this is how when information flows through various channels, it becomes warped. It loses its efficacy, it loses its truth, and it becomes a totally false information. 5G mobile networks spread COVID-19. This was another story that was floated, not true again. And the World Health Organization took it up very seriously. It even categorized this period as an infodemic, which meant flow of hazardous false information. And it regularly put out news, information, debunking several myths. It was in regular touch with some of the world's biggest disseminators of information like Facebook, Twitter, and so on, who started taking it seriously. And they made certain efforts to remove content that was false or that was simply spreading misinformation. And a number of debunking websites also came up overnight, all of them trying to debunk myths and false information, inaccurate information. So this is where I come to the point of my title, where I said citizen responsibility. Every citizen has to have this responsibility to correct, to forward information that is correct, and to not share information that is incorrect. And Google cannot always be right. Sometimes when you look at type something on Google, that some certain websites come on the top. It is not that they are always the most credible source. There are many algorithms these days which can be used by certain websites to come up on top when somebody searches for information. Same thing happens in social media. We have Twitter bots, algorithms, paid likes, promoted tweets. All of these are any tweet, any information on social media, only because it has been shared a lot, only because it has gathered a lot of likes, does not mean that it is true, does not mean that the information it carries is correct. And social media news progression, information progression is such that it will go from you to your circle of friends, and each of those friends has a separate circle of friends, relatives, and so on. And so that is how it does not spread linearly. It spreads in geometric progression. That is why fake information spreads very fast. And so it is the responsibility of every citizen of the country, including students like you, to deal with information pollution. It is everyone's responsibility. And how do you do that? You ask questions. You analyze an information. You do not believe information at face value. Of course, certain information flowing out through government websites or through credible sources can be believed, but not every information coming out from any source should be believed. You must question, you must reason. People with certain social media, having certain social media channels, have certain goals, and their intentions are totally different. So you need to look at the source and the authenticity. What is the information? What crucial information has that particular piece of news omitted to give? So this is how you need to develop a way of critically thinking about any information piece, analyzing that information piece, reasoning, questioning, and then only passing it on to people around you, so that you don't end up passing wrong information. And there's a term called media literacy. Many schools have started to introduce such courses throughout the world, media literacy courses where children are taught how to identify different types of media, how to access and analyze and evaluate the information that is available, and how to cultivate the ability to inquire into the authenticity of a particular piece of information. So the inability to recognize any information, inability to recognize the authenticity of an information can be dangerous for people. And this is something that you need to realize, and you need to practice for everyone around you, for the benefit of everyone, for your own benefit as well as for the benefit of everyone around you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was indeed very insightful. There's no doubt that there is a ton of information out there. And before we, so just to sort of go back to our next item, which is the question and answers. So anybody, all the students and teachers who are online can please ask their questions by typing it in the chat box. And while we are waiting for them to ask a question, sir, I had a question which you have sort of addressed in various presentations, but for students, you're absolutely right. It's extremely challenging for them to know if the information, Google is our, Google knows more than anyone. So if a student Googles something, the first few responses the student will read. Now, as students, is there a quick way for them to identify which information is valid or accurate, or which information is probably not accurate? How do I mean, I think that goes for all of us, not just students, but even adults. Sometimes we get lost in the sea of information and we are unaware to make a determination if it's the right information or not. So how do we do that?
It's no easy way of doing this. As I said, it's a responsibility that needs to be taken seriously. As you said, not just students, even adults fall prey to this. And of course, some way that you can avoid this is by following only genuine websites. By genuine, I mean government websites. Generally, government institutions will not provide you false information or inaccurate information. That is the general belief. There are certain verified news channels which you can follow. Certain channels which will sort of analyze the false information floating around, and they will give the correct information on their channels. These are some websites, some news channels that you can follow. And of course, for students, it is they have a lot of people around them, their teachers, their parents, their relatives, and they can even write directly to scientific institutions, to scientists, and I'm sure most people would be happy to oblige. So there's no easy way of going around shifting the false information from the right information. A lot of homework needs to be done.
Thank you, sir. So just want to request the students and teachers who are online to ask questions and by typing it in the chat box. One of the things that I sort of learned, and we affectionately call it the WhatsApp University, but perhaps we need to exercise some caution before forwarding a message that has come in from WhatsApp or any other means, not just restricted to WhatsApp, but there are several content that is being shared. We absorb content and data like never before, and in a I think the intent is I want to be the one to forward it rather than is it accurate enough. So the point about citizen responsibility is very critical here.
Absolutely,
there's
absolutely.
No doubt about that.
And it's very difficult in WhatsApp groups where your own friends are present, where your own relatives are present, to counter an information that is false. It becomes a very painful exercise. But at least what you can do is not forward that information to others. If it is possible for you to somehow get the correct information and then share it in your own WhatsApp groups, that is the best option. But sometimes it becomes a lot of people hurl abuses and they troll you and all that. So, but at least as a citizen, as a responsible citizen, if you find that an information is not correct, you should never share it forward.
I think that's where the use of our common sense comes in handy.
Yes.
If we can just question that, is this a valid information? Does it seem likely that something like this is possible? Then we can avoid a lot of grief later on. Or just spreading the wrong information. We certainly don't want to do that either.
Correct. And this comes about through a lot of self-training. You should be alert to what information can be wrong. Of course, when we read certain information, we just go on reading and just absorb it. But sometimes certain words, certain phrases, certain incidents will certainly alert you, certainly should raise a red flag. And you should then go and check for the authentic source.
That's right. I think it's important for us to exercise that responsibility. We are not getting any other questions that are coming up, sir. So I think as far as the question and answer is concerned, I think that's a little, we leave it for the teachers to absorb the information or the new information that you have kindly shared with us to come to light, and would request the teachers to share this information and the link to the video with the students, because this is going to be very important for each of the students to know. In this digital age, it's, information is available to us at our fingertips. So exercising a little caution, being responsible for what we are doing or not doing, will help, in the long run for anybody who will probably proceed. So thank you once again very much, sir, for the presentation. Truly appreciate you taking the time and going through everything with us. And so in terms of the webinar series in itself, this is, or this was rather, our 11th webinar. And next month is going to be our final webinar. And coincidentally, it happens to be on the 31st of March, which is a Friday. So not only do we end the academic year, we also end the month on the same day. And hopefully by then, the exams for the students will be over. We'll make sure that it is a webinar again that's recorded and can be shared with the rest of the students. But for all the teachers who are with us right now, please do convey all the best wishes from USO's team and also from the team at CSIR-NIScPR. I'm going to take the liberty of saying that on your behalf as well, sir, to wish all the students all the best for their exams. I know exams is a very critical time for the students, but it's also a time when we also tend to stress out the most. So hopefully they go through the exams with a calm peace of mind, calm and peace of mind. So with that, we conclude our webinar series. Thank you very much for all the students and teachers who joined us this evening. Thank you once again. Sir Javed, sir, thank you so much once again for coming in and going through all the details with us. And hopefully, we'll see you again at another occasion. For the rest of all of the teachers and students online, have a great evening and study hard, and all the best once again. Bye, everybody.